Hello everyone, it's time for another Q&A, so I recorded some video game footage for you to look at while I answer your questions. It's my first time playing this game, so don't expect much if you're paying attention. You folks sent me a bunch of questions, so let's not waste any more time. Hello Daniel, congrats for hitting your milestone. My question for the Q&A is, with YouTube being a cesspool of alt-right YouTubers like Lauren Southern and Paul Watson, or useful idiots for the alt-right like Sagan of Akkad, Bounty King, Chris Reagan, Andy Warski and Tim Pool, etc., do you think the left of YouTube has a chance of rising up and overtaking them? Honestly, that's really hard for me to say, but I'm not as optimistic as some of my peers here on YouTube. When it comes to strict policy, the left might even have the upper hand with TYT, David Pacman and the likes. When it comes to the culture stuff though, the right just has a massive advance. Specifically, the demagogue types like Crowder or Shapiro just have a massive advantage due to not seeming to care much for what is actually true or factual. I don't know, maybe we'll see a shift over the next years, but I'm not holding my breath. Sorry to start the Q&A on such a pessimistic note, everyone. What do you think of the rise of the American left, such as Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and the rise of membership in the Democratic Socialists of America and our revolution? Do you think America is seeing the birth of a social democratic movement? That one came from the Mad Menshevik. I would love to see it happen. The US is probably the country in the Western world which is in need of a true left-wing movement the most, so I'll keep an eye on the midterms and hope that they pull off a victory. What advice would you give to somebody starting a YouTube channel in a genre similar to yours? Also, what resources do you like to use in your research? Thanks and congrats on 50k. Definitely add the word Goyim to your comment word filter. Other than that, have fun and enjoy yourself. Don't let your videos become a chore that you only do because you feel like you have to. Regarding the resources, my local library is my best friend and I can only recommend taking advantage of one if you have it nearby. The next one is in a similar vein. Hello 3 Arrows, I love watching your videos. I was recently inspired by you and a few other YouTubers to try and start up my own YouTube channel. Do you have any suggestions? That's like the hardest word in the English language for me. For programs to use in regards to recording your audio, or for recording other YouTubers' videos to respond to. Sincerely, Steve Prime. Or CV? Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. For recording audio, I use the program Audacity and the video editing is done in HitFilm Express. There are also numerous browser add-ons that let you download videos from YouTube directly, and if I have to record something from the screen, I use OBS. All of these are free to use and I can recommend all of them. At least they're sufficient for what I use them for. Although I'm currently looking for alternatives to HitFilm, but those ones are perfectly fine to get started and even after that. Next one. According to your points on your video about the removal of Confederate statues, should we remove concentration camps and abolish the Day of Remembrance? The structures of the buildings are not art, and their conversion into a museum makes a counterplague of them. The fact that Holocaust deniers exist shows that they fail to connect to some people. These are my thoughts after watching your videos. Before that I thought that celebrating the Holocaust in Israel and the school trips to concentration camps made sense. Okay, so celebrating the Holocaust never makes sense, but I get what you're saying. The comparison from Confederate statues to concentration camps is a faulty one though, because they have different effects and serve different purposes. A counterplague on a Confederate monument is pointless because it's laughable in the contrast of what the monument imposes on its surrounding and also doesn't provide much value in terms of education. Concentration camps, on the other hand, are completely transformed into places of remembrance and education. The concentration camps are not maintained to serve as a reminder of how awesome the Nazis were, but for the opposite reason. I hope that helps. Favorite music artists or bands from Emperor Tiger Star? I don't have a specific genre of music that I listen to most of the time, but my favorite band is called The Glitch Mob, which you should definitely check out. I'll put a link to a song in the description for you guys. Hi, loved your Great War video. I think it did a great job of bringing social history on a military topic. Usually military history on YouTube neglects this badly. Even if they are good at explaining the military capacity of an army, they may not be able to discuss the social and cultural connections to the war. My question is, have you thought about doing other videos on this? The Spanish Civil War comes to mind as one you could make a great topic on, especially since you can discuss propaganda, political violence, and the fallacy that fascists and anti-fascists are the same. Looking forward to more of your work. Cheers! Thank you for the kind words, I always feel awkward reading them out loud. So the video I did on propaganda in World War I is, in my head at least, part of a longer series about propaganda. I hinted at the step and the back myth at the end of the last one, but ultimately I want to jump from era to era, like doing a video on Cold War propaganda, then maybe the Iraq War or the Vietnam War. I'm not sure which one will come next though. The Spanish Civil War might also be an interesting topic. Right now I have so much to choose from that I have trouble deciding on one. I'll keep you guys posted though. If your life had a soundtrack, what would it be? I know that's an odd question, but I often wonder what the world would be like if everybody had their own theme music that was playing all throughout the day and everybody could hear it. My Shit's Fucked Up by Warren Zevon. That was easy. The next question is one that I got multiple times, so I'll just summarize it for you guys. Considering that the symbol you use is from the Iron Front, where's all the anti-communist content? It seems like you only attack the right. My first response to this would be that you shouldn't hold me to the standard of your idea of a long-dead paramilitary group. I'm my own person, and as I mentioned in a previous Q&A, I used the 3 arrows as a placeholder when I started my channel and then just ran with it when the channel gained popularity. Also, if the Iron Front would exist today, they would probably be labeled as far left. They just weren't Bolsheviks. The Iron Front was an SPD-led group, and their political ideas at the time would be considered far left in today's political landscape. But that just as a side note, as I said, it's irrelevant to this channel. When it comes to the reason why there is no anti-communist content on this channel, well, it's the same reason there is no anti-monarchist content on this channel. In today's Western political landscape, the threat to democracy posed by a communist revolution is non-existent. And on YouTube there's no far-left Steven Crowder or Paul Joseph Watson or really anything comparable. Also, I hope that I didn't give you the idea of me being some kind of centrist just because I'm not in favor of communism or the far right. Which ties into our next question. Are you an anti-capitalist? Yeah, probably. I would say so. Next one. When it comes to dealing with historical legacies of World War II atrocities, Japan is often contrasted as a bad example of this, with Germany as a good example. What are your thoughts on Germany's attempts to come to terms with the Holocaust and other Nazi-era atrocities, compensation for victims, how these things are taught in school, etc.? Should it do more? Has it done enough? Is it realistic to ask it to do more even if one personally believes it should? That one came from Carl. I think Germany did a good job of coming to terms with the past. Now there's some caveat to that because this process was very different in West Germany than in the GDR, which is one of the many reasons why the far right gets so good voting results in the eastern part of Germany. For your question if Germany has done enough, I wouldn't agree with that framing. Since this is a continuous process and its main goal is not really to make up for it, I don't think that's possible, but keeping the memory alive and working towards a future where something like this can never happen again. Which historian would you be most interested in meeting and having a conversation with? As in, my dream is to meet Anthony Beevor and ask him about Stalingrad. If I can't pick any historian, my choice would be Herodotus of Halicarnassus, but that's a bit cheating since the guy is long dead. I would love to talk to Peter Hart one day. He wrote a fantastic book called The Great War, which everyone who is interested in the subject should check out. Have you ever looked into the skeptic sphere of Germany? I get this question a lot, and honestly I have to say no. I could name like 3 or 4 German YouTubers who do political stuff, but that's it. This wasn't a deliberate decision from me though. I just never stumbled upon them and right now I don't have an interest in doing so. You said in one of your Q&A videos that the 3 arrows was supposed to be a placeholder, but your channel blew up so fast and now you just roll with it. So, if you could go back in time and change your name and icon, would you do it? To something like Kaiser Wilhelm with laser eyes. That one came from Higgins the Rat Seagull. I wouldn't change it because since then I have learned to appreciate the logo very much, especially to cross out other channel icons. And Kaiser Wilhelm II with laser eyes would probably give off the vibe that I'm some kind of monarchist or reactionary. The Kaiser Wilhelm is a meme from my Twitch channel, by the way, for those of you who are a bit confused by that. I know there was a sort of surge in right-wing German channels a while back, probably due to capitalizing on the right-wing YouTube scene and being anti-immigration. Would you say most of the German youth is leftist, or are these channels kind of representative? Although recently there was quite a shift to the right, the majority of young people in Germany are still considered to be on the left. That's nothing exclusive to Germany though. Younger people tend to be more left-leaning nearly everywhere around the world. When it comes to the surge in right-wing channels, I can't speak for any German-speaking channels, but yeah, there was a time when the amount of people complaining about SJWs on YouTube exploded, but luckily that seems to die off slowly. Hey Daniel, huge fan. You were the gateway to the rest of left YouTube for me. I'm a huge history nut and hope to one day get a PhD in history. What is the most important aspect of history? Well, you would be better off asking a historian about their craft than me, but if I can give any advice, it would be to always seek out different perspectives when you think you have the definitive answer to a historical question. It's also important to know the historiography of the topics you're interested in to fully understand how our modern outlooks on things like the world wars and such developed over time. For instance, the historiography of our understanding of World War I could be subject of an essay in itself. I think that's the best advice I can give. Hey Daniel, I've been a fan of your work since you began creating videos and have had my political views challenged and changed over the course of the last year. I grew up in a pretty conservative, right-leaning home and my new beliefs are definitely not welcomed. How do I maintain my relationship with my parents while still be true to myself? XX Gabby. Well, I can't speak to your specific situation. One thing I try to improve about myself when arguing with people who have very conservative views is to not appear as condescending or outright dismissive while the other person is bringing forth his or her arguments. That usually makes the other person instantly deaf for your arguments. When someone makes a statement that is obviously rooted in ignorance, it's hard to remain serious sometimes, but yeah, that's the thing I'm working on. When you found a solution, send me a Twitter DM. I hope you have success with that. I was interested in the recent press around the Ask Historians subreddit policy on Holocaust denial, namely to shut it down immediately. When dealing with the alt-right in particular, where do we draw the line between things that should be rebutted and things that should be ignored to avoid legitimizing the opposing arguments? I also love to hear thoughts on how we can actually make a difference. How do we get the kinds of arguments you debunk and discuss, and more pertinently, the critical tools needed to debunk such ideologies, into the minds of those who are currently particularly susceptible to them? So for the first part, when should we draw the line on what is allowed to be said free of punishment? Well, and this may be because I'm German, for me the line is crossed when someone engages in activity that serves the purpose to overthrow our free democratic republic, as well as threatening minority groups. Once that point is crossed, I have no objections to the state using violence to prevent further damage from society. I know a lot of people are really big on the free marketplace of ideas memes, but that idea failed miserably in this country and I'm not willing to allow that to happen again. In Germany we call this fortified democracy. Maybe I should do a video on this. And for your second question, I like to tell myself that my videos may be able to pull people away from right-wing demagogues, but some people are just so far out there that any argument is pointless. So I guess we'll keep on trucking and see what the future brings. Since you know so much about German history, are you a history student? From Dan. No, I'm not, and most of the stuff I know about history I've learned in the last 2 years. Sadly, I found my interest in history rather late in life, which means in my early 20s. Do you have an opinion on the writings of Peter Kropotkin and anarchism in general? I can't recount how often I have been asked to read The Conquest of Bread, but unfortunately I have no idea when I'm gonna get to it. Right now my reading time is limited to stuff I need for upcoming videos, sorry. Do you have any book recommendations? I think I gave some recommendations for non-fiction on my last Q&A, so I'll just name a few fiction books that I really enjoyed if that's okay. My favorite book series is the Hank Thompson trilogy, which is a kinda hard-boiled crime story over 3 books following one character. I also really enjoyed The Road by Cormac McCarthy as well as The Power of the Dog by Dawn Winslow. Sticking with the theme of dogs, Road Dogs by Elmo Leonard is also a great book. And in the case that you want to be really depressed for several months, I recommend the Red Riding series by David Peace, which is modern noir, I would say. I know a lot of people on the internet really like fantasy books, but unfortunately I don't enjoy those at the moment. One book which you should never read is American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis, because it's very boring and a waste of time and no one will convince me otherwise. Otto von Bismarck, Living Up to the Legend Status or Overrated Talentless Hack from Nicholas. Definitely not a talentless hack, but also a bit over-idealized in Germany for my taste. But you know, he's pretty much the creator of this country, so people don't usually care about his anti-democratic stances. A very good politician in his time though. And the last one for today. Hey, I just watched your video on World War I propaganda and I wondered if you have watched the channel The Great War, and if so, what are your thoughts about how they present the war? I love The Great War. The YouTube channel, that is. Think they do an awesome job in education while also being very entertaining. And in case you didn't know yet, they just started with their week-by-week coverage of World War II, so definitely check them out. And that's it for this time, everyone. Thank you for your questions, and I'm sorry if I didn't answer yours. There were a lot of them. Also, thank you for 50,000 subscribers and to all my patrons. I wouldn't be making videos without all of you. The next video is gonna come out in about 2 weeks from me uploading this, so hopefully I'll see you there. Although that one might be a bit more painful to watch. Good place to end it here on a cliffhanger. So, see you then, everyone.